Good morning, everyone, and welcome to The World Today. I'm Li Dongning in Beijing. Well, China will hold a grand military parade on September the 3rd to mark the 80th anniversary of victory against Japanese aggression and fascism. And a news conference is taking place in Beijing, where Foreign Minister Ma Zhaoxu will brief the media on China's commitment to upholding peaceful development and building a community with a shared future for humanity.
女士们、先生们，大家上午好。
Ladies and gentlemen,
欢
good
迎出
morning.
席中国人民抗日战
Welcome to
争
attend the
暨
second
世
press
界
conference
反法
of
西
the
斯战争
commemoration of
胜
the
利80
80th
周年纪
anniversary
念
of
活
the
动
victory of the
新闻
Chinese
中心
people's
第二
war
场
of
记
resistance
者招待
against
会。
Japanese aggression and the World
今天我们非
Anti-Fascist
常高
War.
兴邀请
Today
到
we have invited
外交部副部长马
Deputy
昭
Foreign
旭先生，
Minister Mr. Ma Zhaoxu.
请他向大
He
家介
will
绍
brief us
坚
on
持和平发展，
pursuing peace and
推动
development
构建人
and
类
building
命
a
运共同
community
体
with a
的
shared
情况
future for
回
humanity.
答大家关心的问题。
And he will later on take your
下面我们
questions.
首先请马昭旭先生做
First
介
of all,
绍。
I will give the floor to Mr. Ma Zhaoxu.
主持人好，各位
Good
记者朋友
morning,
大家
Mr.
上午好
Moderator. Good morning, friends
很高兴
from the media.
出席今
I'm
天的记者
delighted
会，
to attend today's press
就
conference
中国
and give
坚
a
持
briefing
和
on
平发
China's
展
commitment to peaceful
推动构
development
建
and
人类
the
命运共同
building
体
of a community with a
介绍
shared future
有关
for
情况
humanity.
中国人民抗日
The
战
victory
争
of the
的
Chinese
伟大
people's
胜利
war of resistance against
是
Japanese
中华民族
aggression represents
从近
a
代以来
historic turning point
陷入
where
深
the
重
Chinese nation emerged
走向
from the
伟
profound
大复
crisis
兴
in
的
modern times
历史
and
转折
marched
点
toward great rejuvenation.
对世界各国
It
人
had a
民
major,
夺取
far-reaching
反
impact
法西斯
on the great
战争的
cause of
胜利
people across the world
争
to
取
defeat fascism
世界和
and
平的伟大
pursue
事业
peace.
产生了重大而深远的影响。新中国成立以来，
After the founding of the new
中国
China,
坚持
China
独立自主
has
的
pursued
和平外交
an
政策
independent foreign policy of
提出
peace.
和平共
It has
处
proposed
五项
the
原
five
则
principles of peaceful
倡
coexistence,
导促进
advocated
世界
a
多极化
multipolar world
和国际关
and
系
democracy
民
in
主化
international relations,
为世界和平发展事
making
业
important contribution
重要
to world
贡献。
peace and development.
进入新时代，
Entering the new era,
世界百年变局
changes
加
unseen
速
in a
演进
century are accelerating
多重
across
风险
the globe,
交织
coupled
叠
with
加
multiple and interlinked
和平
risks.
赤字、
Peace
发
deficit,
展赤字、
development deficit,
安全赤字、
security deficit,
治理赤
and
字
governance deficit
更加
keep
加重。
worsening.
人类社会
Once again,
再次来到
humanity
关
has
键的
come to
十字
a
路口
critical crossroads.
习近平主席
President Xi
站
Jinping,
在历史的高度
with his
着眼
broad
中国人
strategic insight
和世界人民的共同利益，以大党
and a
大
deep
国领袖
commitment
的
to the world
宽广战略视野
and of the Chinese people,
卓
with
越
extraordinary
政治智慧
political wisdom
和
and deep
深远
commitment to the world as the
世界
leader of a
情
major
怀
country and a major party,
准确把握
has
人类
grasped
社会
the prevailing
发展大势
trends
和
and
演变
laws
规律，
governing the evolution of
高瞻
human
远瞩地
society,
提出构建
ingeniously put
人
forth
类
the
命运
vision
共
of
同体
building a community
重
with
大
a
理
shared
念
future for humanity.
回答了
This has
人
answered
类
the
向何处
question
去
of where humanity should be
这个
heading,
世界之问、
the question raised by the
历史之
world,
问
by history,
时代
and
之问，
by our times.
在历史转折
It
关
has
头
charted the course
为
for
世界
world
和平发
peace
展
and development
指明
at
了
a
方向，
historical inflection
为
point
人类共同
and
进步
pulled extensive
凝聚了
consensus
强大共
for the
识。
common progress of humanity.
习近平主席指出，
President Xi Jinping points
人
out
类是一个
that
一
all
荣俱
countries
荣、
are in a community
一损
with
俱损
their
的
future
命运共
linked.
同体。各国不是乘坐
Countries
在
are not
190
riding
多条
separately in some 190 small
而
boats,
是乘坐在
but
一
are
条
all in a giant
命
ship
运与共的
on which our shared destiny hinges.
小船经不
Small
起风
boats may
浪，
not survive a
巨舰
storm, but a
才能
giant
顶
ship
住
is
惊
strong
涛
enough
骇浪。
to brave the storm.
人类命运共同体
Building a community with a
就是
shared
每个
future for
民族、
humanity
每
means
个
that
国
the
家的
future of each
前
and
途命
every
运
nation and
都
country
紧紧联
is
系在一起，
interlocked.
应该
So we
风雨
should
同
stick
舟
together through
荣
thick
辱
and
与共
thin
努力
and
把
endeavor
我们
to build
生于
this
斯
planet of
长于
ours
斯的 这个星球建成
into a
和睦的
big
大家庭，
and harmonious
把
family,
世界各国
and
人
turn
民
the
对美好
aspiration
生
of
活的
people
向
of
往
all countries for a better life into reality.
2013年，
In
习近
2013,
平主席在莫斯科
at the
国际
Moscow
关系学院
Institute of International Relations, President Xi Jinping first proposed that humanity live in the same global village and have increasingly emerged as a community with a shared future in which everyone's interests are closely intertwined. In 2015, at the general debate of the 70th session of the UN General Assembly, President Xi Jinping outlined a 5-point proposal of this community with a shared future. In 2017, at the UN office
日内瓦
at
总部
Geneva,
演讲中
President Xi Jinping further proposed 5 goals
努力目
for the
标。
world.
在2023年
In December
12月召开的
2023,
中央
at
外事
the
工作会
Central
议上，
Conference on the Work Relating to
习近平
Foreign
主席
Affairs,
发表重要
President
讲
Xi
话，
Jinping delivered an
进
important
一步
address
明确了构建
establishing
人类命运共
the
同体
pillars of
科学
building
体
a
系
community
的
with a shared
自
future
然
for
发展
humanity as a scientific system.
以建设
The
世界
goal
和
is to
平
build an
普遍
open,
安全
inclusive,
共同繁
clean,
荣
beautiful
开放
world
包
of
容
lasting peace,
清洁
universal
美丽的世
security,
界
and shared
为努力目
prosperity.
标，以推动
The pathway is promoting global governance that features extensive consultation and joint contribution for shared benefit.
以践行
The
全人
guiding
类共同价
principle
值
is to apply
为普
the
遍
common
精神
values of humanity.
以推动构
The
建
basic
新型
underpinning
国际关系
lies in building a new
为
type of
基本支
international
撑
relations.
以落实
The
全球
strategic
发展
guidance
倡议
comes from the
全球
implementation of the
安全
Global
倡议
Development Initiative,
全球文
the
明
Global
倡议
Security Initiative,
为战
and
略
the
引领
Global Civilization
以
Initiative.
高质量共建
And the
一
platform
带一
for
路
action
为
is
实践
high
平
quality
衡
Belt and Road
推动各
cooperation.
国
We hope
携手
countries of the
应对
world
挑
can
战
work together to meet
实现
challenges
共
and
同繁荣
achieve prosperity for all.
构建人类命运共
This
同体
vision of building a community with a shared
继承和
future
发
for
扬
mankind has inherited and
新中国
carried
成立以
forward
来的
the diplomatic
外交理
philosophy,
念、战略思想，
strategic thinking,
和
and
优
fine
良传统，
traditions formed since
并
the
在
founding
波
of the
澜
new
壮阔
China
的中国特
and
色
has been
大国外交
continuously
实践中
enriched and
不断
developed
丰富
in the
发展。
practice of major country diplomacy with
这一
Chinese
重大理念
characteristics. The idea
源于
is
对
based
国家
on a
交往
reasonable
关系
design for
合理提升。
state-to-state relations.
源于国际社
It
会的普
reflects
遍共识
the general
和
consensus
共同
and common
期盼
expectations of the international
也源于
community
中国
and
的
demonstrates
大国责任
China's sense of
和担
duty
当。
as a responsible major
它为
country.
国际关系
It introduces
确立
a new
新
approach
思路
for international relations,
为全球治理
provides
提供新智慧，
new ideas for global
为国
governance,
际交往
and
开创
draws
新格局，
a new blueprint
为
for a
美
better
好
world.
世界描绘新愿景。它超越了
It rises
集团政治
above the exclusive
小圈子
rules of bloc politics,
超越了实力至上
above
的
the
霸道
notion
国际
of might makes right,
超越了少数西方国家
And
自诩的
the so-called
所谓
universal
普世价值
values defined by a
形
handful
成
of Western
共建
countries.
美好世界的
It has
最大
created the
公约数
greatest synergy for building a better world.
在各方携手努力下，
Thanks to joint
构
efforts,
建人类
the
命
vision
运
of building a community with a shared future for
已经从
mankind
中国
has
倡议
been expanded
扩大为
from China's
国际共识
initiative into international
从美
consensus.
好愿景
It has turned
转
from
化为
a good
丰富
aspiration
实践
to rich practices.
从
It
理
has
念主张
evolved from a
发
proposed
展为科
concept
学体系
to a scientific
实
system.
现了从
It
双边
has achieved a historic leapfrog from bilateral to multilateral and from regional to global initiative, from development to security, and from cooperation to
取得
governance.
全方位
It has achieved comprehensive and groundbreaking outcomes.
国际社会普遍认为
It is now widely recognized in the international community that the vision
超越
has
利己
transcended
主义
self-interest and protectionism.
打破了
It
个别国家
confronts the hegemonic thinking of certain countries that seek
反
supremacy.
映出中
It
国
presents
对人类
China's
发展
vision
方向的
of the cause of
独到
human
见解。
development. Therefore, it is of great significance to promote solidarity and cooperation among all countries and create a better future for humanity. Many international figures have said that this vision represents the idea and desire of the international community and brings peace, development, and hope to the world. UN Secretary-General Guterres stated that the purpose that we practice multilateralism is to build a community for humanity. This vision, this important vision, has been included in UNGA resolutions and declarations at CO Summit for 8 consecutive years. It has been written in BRICS leaders' statements for 8 times, and its core tenet has been included in the UN Pact for the Future. It has become a landmark international public good. President Xi has pointed out that dreams and wishes may be far, but they can be fulfilled with dedicated pursuit. Building a community with a shared future for humanity is a goal that requires efforts by generations. China is ready to work with all countries to be guided by this vision, draw wisdom from history, show a sense of responsibility of our times, work in solidarity, and work relentlessly toward the lofty goal of building a community with a shared future for mankind. Thank you.
Thank you for introduction. Now we will have the Q&A session. We welcome questions from the media. Please also notify us your media affiliation before raising your question. The press conference will provide simultaneous interpretation. However, if question is in English, it will be translated consecutively. Now please raise your hand if you want to raise your question.
China Daily. Since the 18th CPC National Congress, President Xi Jinping has personally carried out head of state diplomacy with remarkable achievements, and we understand that in the upcoming major events there will be a series of bilateral and multilateral meetings. How do you perceive the strategic guiding role of head of state diplomacy for building a community with a shared future for humanity? Head of state diplomacy is the highest form of China's diplomacy. In major country diplomacy with Chinese characteristics, head of state diplomacy plays a decisive role. Since the 18th CPC National Congress, President Xi Jinping has personally planned and executed head of state diplomacy with many remarkable achievements and highlights. He has paid 55 foreign visits, covering 72 countries, spanning across 5 continents, and he has received more than 230 visits from foreign heads of state paying state visits to China. Together with leaders from around the world, President Xi Jinping has carried out in-depth strategic communication, as well as work on furthering friendship with people around the world. He has expounded on the way to achieve peaceful development and win-win cooperation and promoted global solidarity, providing a strong force for peace, stability, and progress in a changing and turbulent world. President Xi Jinping and President Vladimir Putin of Russia took the high-speed railway and watched ice hockey game together. He celebrated the birthday of President Tokayev of Kazakhstan, and he signed the book Xi Jinping, The Governance of China for Chilean President Boric, who took the book with him. All of these are wonderful tales in China's diplomacy. From state visit to home ground diplomacy, from international multilateral summits to important meetings in China, President Xi Jinping has expounded on the vision of a community with a shared future for humanity on all these occasions, further enriching this important vision and pulling international consensus. As we speak, China and the world are standing at a new starting point in heading for a shared future. We should further study and implement Xi Jinping thought on diplomacy and take head of state diplomacy as a guide in working for a community with a shared future for humanity.
好，这边吧，第4排靠边上北区这位女记者，对。
谢谢中评社记者提问。
China Review News Agency. Currently, international and regional hotspot issues are flaring up one after another, bringing impact to peace and stability across the world. How will China address peace and security issue with your vision of building a community with a shared future for humanity?
Over the past 8 decades after the war, the world has maintained overall peace. However, the world today is not tranquil. Regional hotspots and regional conflicts keep cropping up. Traditional and non-traditional security threats intertwine. It is fair to say that international security situation is becoming increasingly challenging and complex. President Xi Jinping, being mindful of the future, security and well-being of all humanity, has solemnly proposed the Global Security Initiative, calling for commitment to the security vision featuring common, comprehensive, cooperative and sustainable security, commitment to respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity of all countries, commitment to compliance with the purposes and principles of the UN Charter, commitment to taking seriously the reasonable security concerns of all countries, commitment to peaceful means to address countries' differences and disputes through dialogue and consultation, commitment to coordinate efforts to ensure security in both traditional and non-traditional fields in order to address the root cause of international conflict, respond to global security challenges, and improve global security governance. This is China's proposal. Right now, the GSI has gained support from over 130 countries and international and regional organizations, and it has been clearly written into over 140 bilateral and multilateral documents. Since the founding of the new China, China has never provoked a single war. It has never taken an inch of land of other countries. China is the only country in the world that has written into its constitution the commitment to a path of peaceful development, is the only major nuclear state that pledges no first use of nuclear weapons. China has always been a staunch defender of the purposes and principles of the UN Charter. So far, it is the biggest contributor among P5 countries of peacekeeping personnel. And it is the second largest contributor to UN peacekeeping budget, thus making outstanding contribution to maintaining world peace. We are commemorating the Chinese people's war of resistance against Japanese aggression and the World Anti-Fascist War. This year marks the 80th anniversary, and the purpose is to remember history, honor the fallen heroes, cherish peace, and build a better future. We will defend the right view on the history of the Second War, pull strength and power for peace, and China stands ready to work with all parties to implement the GSI, to inject greater stability and certainty to the international community and work together for a world of lasting peace and universal security. Thank you.
好，这边吧，第2排南区最靠边上这位外国记者。对，是你。
Okay, thank you. My name is Natsanas. I came from Ethiopia and also the CIPCC program. I have one question. In a world facing challenges posed by unilateralism and protectionism and delays in attaining the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, what more can China do to promote global development? Thank you.
好，请翻译一下。
埃塞俄比亚广播公司，当前全球发展面临单边主义、保护主义等多重挑战。联合国2030年可持续发展议程落实进展缓慢，在当前形势下，中国在促进全球发展方面将如何发挥更大作用？
正如这位记者朋友所说
Just like what is mentioned by our friend,
保护主义抬头，
unilateralism and protectionism is on the rise, bringing impact to the recovery of the world economy.
合作动能不足。
International cooperation lacks momentum.
2030年可持续发展
The implementation of the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is falling far
可
behind.
持续发展事业
The cause of sustainable development humanity faces grave challenges.
习近平主席指出，
President Xi Jinping has pointed out that China's
离
development
不开世界，
needs openness to the world,
世界的繁荣
and the world's prosperity
中国。
needs contributions from China.
中国不断以自身新发展
China is
为
constantly
世界提供
bringing
新机遇，
new opportunities to the world with its own new development,
促
promoting
进世界
modernization across the globe with Chinese modernization.
中国坚定不移地扩大，
China is firmly committed to promoting high standard opening up,
坚定不移推动构建开放型世界经济，
building an open world economic system,
坚定不移推进贸易和投资
protecting
自由化、便
the
维护
stable and unimpeded operation of the global
多边贸易
trade, as well as the the WTO-centered multilateral trading
供
system,
应链的稳定畅
as well as the
高质
stable
量
and unimpeded
共建
operation of the
带路
global industrial and supply chain.
走实。150 个
High-quality
国
Belt
家
and Road cooperation was further deepened and substantiated. 150 countries have joined the big family of
汇
Belt and
集
Road
世界
cooperation.
幸福路越走越宽广。
These efforts have made this path to greater happiness ever broader and more inclusiveness.
8项行动
China has announced 8
与所有
actions
建
supporting
交的
global development.
最不发达国家100%税目
And we have also given zero tariff treatments to 100% tariff lines to all LDCs that have diplomatic relations with China.
全球发展倡议
President Xi
就是要推动
proposed the
国际社会
Global Development Initiative with the very aim to refocus the attention of the international community on development
2030
issues,
年可持续发展议程
reiterating our
再承诺
commitment to the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable
国
Development.
际组织
Over 100 countries and international organizations have supported and participated in the cooperation under this initiative. More than 80 countries have joined the group of
倡议
friends
框架下
of this
已经开始
initiative.
展的务实合作，给
The
各国人民
practical cooperation
带来
under the framework
实实
of
在
this
在的
initiative has brought tangible benefits to people from many
当前
countries.
世界经济增长乏力，发展鸿沟。
As the world economic growth is sluggish and development divides keeps widening, we should
2030年
revisit
可持续发展议程的初心，
the original aspiration of the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development,
落实全球发展倡议，
revitalize global development partnership, and implement the Global Development Initiative so as to bring more benefit to the people around the world.
好，后面中区第4排，对，这位女记者，对。
谢谢。部长您好，我是光明日报的记者。
Guangming Daily.
近年
In recent
文明
years,
冲突论、文明优越论
rhetoric
等论
such
调
as
成家
clash
泛
of
起
civilizations
人类文明
and
发展面临的
superiority of
冲突
certain
和挑战
civilizations are
也更为复
resurfacing,
杂。
and
请问
the growth of
对
human
文明消除
civilization
隔阂
faces more complex
推
and
促进
volatile
文明
changes.
互建交流有哪些
What
立场和主张？
propositions
谢谢。
does China have in terms of eliminating estrangement and promoting exchanges and mutual learning among civilizations?
习近平主席提出了
In 2023, President Xi Jinping put forward the Global Civilization
要
Initiative,
共同倡导
calling for joint efforts
世界文明
to
多样性
advocate respect for the diversity of civilizations,
弘扬全人
the
类
common values of humanity, the importance of inheritance and innovation of civilizations, and robust international people-to-people exchanges and cooperation, thus providing important guidance for promoting exchanges and mutual learning among civilizations, and for friendship and exchanges between people across the world. The Global Civilization Initiative has increasingly become a global consensus. It has been written numerous times into UN resolutions and various bilateral and multilateral documents. In 2024, the 78th session of the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution establishing June 10th every year as the International Day for Dialogue Among Civilizations. And on July 10th this year, a ministerial meeting on global civilizational dialogue was held in Beijing. President Xi Jinping sent a congratulatory message to the meeting, pointing the direction for dialogue and exchanges among different civilizations. In 2023, President Xi put forward the 5-year, 50,000-strong initiative, under which more than 30,000 young Americans have visited China. They have made friends with Chinese youngsters and come to see the real China. China has a unilateral visa-free or full mutual visa-free policy with 75 countries. And we offer visa-free transit to 55 countries, thus making China travel a sensation. Cultural products such as Black Myth, Wukong, Ne Zha 2, and Labubu are an international hit, writing many vivid stories of exchanges and mutual learning between China and the rest of the world. Each and every civilization is rooted in its own cultural soil, and they embody the extraordinary wisdom and pursuit of a country and a nation. They all have their own value. Mankind have different skin colors and languages, but there is no superiority to civilizations. Human society has entered the 21st century. To clamor for or even create a clash between civilizations is to turn back the wheel of history. China is ready to work with countries around the world to advocate equality, mutual learning, dialogue, and mutual accommodation between civilizations, practice the Global Civilization Initiative, and make greater contributions to the progress of human civilizations. Thank you.
好，请继续提问。好，第2排中间这位女记者。对。
谢谢总台央视记者提问。我们也注意到呢，今年是联合国成立
CGTV News. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the establishment of the United Nations. Faced with growing numbers of global challenges, some people are saying that multilateral system represented by the United Nations has failed to play its due role. What is China's view on the role and status of the United Nations?
I believe we all remember that China is the first country to put its signature on the UN Charter. For 80 years since its founding, the United Nations has carried the keen aspirations of people across the world for peace and development. Till today, the United Nations remains the most universal, authoritative, and representative intergovernmental international organization. 80 years on, humanity has come a long way. However, to realize the beautiful vision described in the UN Charter remains an arduous journey. In particular, certain countries has been pursuing unilateralism. It has been walking away from a host of international organizations and treaties and has taken a selective approach to the UN as it sees fit. This has seriously impacted the international order and system. In recent years, a series of major crises and challenges warn us repeatedly that the role of the United Nations can only be strengthened, not diminished. And the status of the United Nations must be upheld and not replaced. Whether the United Nations can play its due role, the key lies in whether member states can uphold the purposes and principles of its charter, whether they can act in a way that is consistent with international law and basic norms governing international relations. At the same time, the United Nations needs to be strengthened through reform so as to better respond to global challenges, and in particular, to increase the representation and say of developing countries in international affairs. President Xi Jinping has proposed the major concept of building a community with a shared future for humanity, which is highly aligned with the purposes and principles of the UN Charter. China has taken a lead in practicing true multilateralism. It has been firmly supporting the United Nations in playing a central role in international affairs. And under the UN framework, China has been working hard to pursue political settlement of hotspot issues, to reform the international economic and financial systems, and to safeguard the interest of developing countries and respond to climate change and other global challenges. And China has made great contribution in this regard. UN Secretary-General Guterres has said on many occasions that China is a pillar for international cooperation and multilateralism. As the United Nations stands at the threshold of the next 80 years, China stands ready to work with all parties to strengthen the role of the United Nations and build a more equitable and reasonable international governance system. Thank you.
后面吧，南区倒数第2排这位记者，对。
谢谢。深圳卫视执新闻记者提问。
Shenzhen TV. This year marks the decade anniversary of the signing of the Paris Agreement. Global climate governance is now at a new crossroads. Though the US have once again pulled out from the agreement, the international community widely believes that green and low-carbon development is still an irreversible trend, and different sides are still working together to meet the targets of carbon peaking and carbon neutrality. And how will China continue to protect and lead the global climate governance process?
中国是世界绿色发展的坚定的
China is a staunch actor and an important contributor of the world green development.
在习近平生态文明思想指引下
Guided by President Xi Jinping's thought on ecological civilization, China is making solid progress in meeting the twin goals of carbon peaking and neutrality. It has established a 1+N policy system and has built the biggest system of renewable energy with the fastest growth in the world. We have built the biggest and most complete industrial chain of new energy. China is also the fastest and largest contributor to global greening efforts, accounting for 1/4 of the increased areas of forestation in the world. In China today, 1/3 of the electricity comes from green source. China is actively carrying out international climate cooperation. Since 2016, China has provided and motivated over 177 billion RMB to support developing countries' effort in climate response. Today, China's new energy enterprises have provided 80% of the PV components and 70% of the wind power equipment in the world. bringing down the cost for solar energy by over 80%. And over 60% for wind power. No matter how the international landscape may evolve, China will not slow down its action in climate response, will not weaken its effort in promoting international cooperation, and it will not stop in building a community with a shared future for humanity. We will abide by the UNFCCC and its Paris Agreement, focus our effort on green and low-carbon development, and jointly respond to climate crisis through multilateral cooperation. We will deepen international cooperation and ensure the free flow of green technology and products through multilateral governance, so as to make sure quality products are available at affordable prices for countries around the globe, particularly those from the developing world. In the meantime, we firmly believe that developed countries have the obligation to provide assistance and support to developing countries and make their due contribution to the green and low-carbon transition of the world. More questions, please.
第一排。
China News Agency. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the restoration of Taiwan. At present, the international paradigm of upholding the One China principle is steadily consolidated. Meanwhile, some countries are still seeking to obscure and hollow out the principle. How will China's diplomacy in the new era firmly deter the interference in the Taiwan question by external forces in order to defend China's sovereignty and territorial integrity? As you mentioned, this year marks the 80th anniversary of Taiwan's restoration. Taiwan's return to China is a fruit of the victory in World War II and an important component of the post-war international order. The Cairo Declaration, the Potsdam Proclamation, among other instruments with legal effect under international law, all affirmed China's sovereignty over Taiwan. The historical and legal fact that Taiwan belongs to China brooks no challenge. The One China principle is the universal consensus of the international community and a basic norm of international relations. It is the political foundation and premise for China to establish and develop diplomatic relations with countries around the world. To date, 183 countries have established diplomatic relations with China on the basis of the One China principle. In 1971, the 26th session of the UN General Assembly adopted Resolution 2758 with an overwhelming majority, which decided to restore all the lawful rights of the People's Republic of China in the United Nations and to expel forthwith the representatives of the Taiwan authorities from the UN and all its institutions. This resolution resolved once and for all the issue of the representation of the whole of China, including Taiwan, in the UN. It completely blocked any possibility to create two Chinas or one China, one Taiwan. UN General Assembly Resolution 2758's authority brooks no challenge. The Taiwan question is at the core of China's core interests. Resolving the Taiwan question and achieving the complete reunification of the motherland is the common aspiration of all the sons and daughters of the Chinese nation. Upholding national sovereignty, security, and development interests is the sacred mission of China's diplomacy. Today, the international paradigm of upholding the One China principle is further cemented. The Chinese people's just cause of opposing Taiwan independence separatist activities and striving for national reunification has achieved the widespread understanding and support of the international community. I would like to reiterate that the Taiwan question is purely China's internal affair. It brooks no external interference. The handful of external forces seeking to exploit the Taiwan question to contain China are playing with fire, and those who play with fire will perish by it. The overwhelming trend of China's ultimate and inevitable reunification is unstoppable. Thank you.
好，中区第3排这位记者。
谢谢主持人。香港紫金杂志记者提问。
Zijing magazine, solidarity and collaboration of major countries, has played an important role in the victory against the war of fascists, as well as in building post-war international order and in maintaining world peace and stability. What is China's view on its relations with Russia, United States, and Europe, and what is China's position in terms of further developing relations with major countries?
President Xi Jinping pointed out that major country relations bear on global strategic stability, and major countries shoulder special responsibilities. China actively pursues an architecture of major country relations featuring peaceful coexistence, overall stability, and balanced development. China-Russia relationship in today's turbulent and changing world is unparalleled in terms of stability, maturity, and strategic significance. 80 years ago, the people of both countries made huge sacrifice and made important historic contribution to the establishment of post-war international order. The two sides will carry forward the right view on the history of the Second World War, defend the victorious outcomes of the Second World War, and advance the comprehensive strategic partnership of coordination in the new era, and make even greater contribution to the progress of humanity. Since the beginning of this year, President Xi Jinping and President Trump of the United States had 2 phone calls, and they have exchanged many letters. And together they have set the course and direction for the giant ship of China-US relations. President Xi Jinping pointed out that China and the United States share extensive common interests and broad space for cooperation. The two countries can be partners and friends, and work together to do more things, big things, concrete things, and good things, beneficial for both countries and the world at large. We are committed to pursuing mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation with the United States, and at the same time, we will firmly defend China's sovereignty, security, and development interests. Pressure or coercion on China is not the right approach and won't work. Efforts to hold back China's development and hinder the great rejuvenation of the Chinese people and Chinese nation will only fail. We are ready to work with the United States toward the same direction, implement the important common understandings of the two presidents, maintain communication, manage and control differences, expand cooperation, and continue to explore the right way for the two major countries to get along in the new era. This year is the 50th anniversary of China-EU relations. When meeting EU leaders, President Xi Jinping summarized the important experience and inspirations of China-EU relations over the past 50 years. They are mutual respect, seeking common ground while putting aside differences, openness and cooperation, and mutual benefit. China is ready to deepen strategic communication with the EU, increase understanding and mutual trust, and strengthen partnership, which is the defining feature of the relationship, open wider to each other, properly handle differences and frictions, and to move forward China-EU relationship. Thank you.
继续提问。好，这边第2排北区这位外国记者。
I represent Associated Press of Pakistan. The Central Conference on Work related to neighboring countries was held in Beijing this April. President Xi Jinping called for building community with a shared future with neighboring countries and opening new ground to the work related to neighboring countries. Can you update us on the progress on that front? Thank you.
好，请翻译一下。
巴基斯坦通讯社今年4月中央周边工作会议在北京举行，习近平主席强调要聚焦构建周边命运共同体，努力开创周边工作新局面。您能否介绍一下构建周边命运共同体的进展情况？
中国始终将周边置于外交全局的
China has always prioritized the neighborhood on its diplomatic agenda and is always committed to promoting regional peace and stability, development and prosperity. Just like you have wisely put it, this April, the Central Conference on Work related to neighboring countries was successfully held, during which we have made clear the overarching vision and the objectives and tasks for the work related to neighboring countries going forward. We have put the stress on the need to promote the building of a community with a shared future and build a better future with neighboring countries. And as we speak, steady progress was being made, and the work related to building a community with a shared future with neighboring countries has reached a new level. President Xi Jinping has traveled to almost all neighboring countries. After the 80th, 90th, and 20th CPC National Congresses, the destination of President Xi Jinping's first visit are all neighboring countries, ushering China's relations with its neighbors into the best era since modern times. Many neighboring countries have announced with China the building of communities with shared future at the bilateral level, and we are making efforts to build an even closer China-ASEAN community with a shared future. China has achieved full coverage on building a community with a shared future with all countries on the Indo-China Peninsula and the Central Asian countries at both bilateral and multilateral levels. China has signed Belt and Road cooperation documents with 25 neighboring countries. China is the biggest trading partner with 18 countries in the neighborhood. China and ASEAN are each other's largest trading partner for 5 years consecutively. The negotiation of the China-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement 3.0 has been fully concluded, and the RCEP is being implemented to a high standard. Economic cooperation industrial parks, cross-border e-commerce hubs, and smart agricultural networks are established in the neighborhood, bringing a huge amount of jobs for local communities. It has become a wide consensus among China's neighbors that cooperate with China brings both respect and real benefit. China calls for a model of security for Asia featuring sharing well and war, seeking common ground while shelving differences, and dialogue and consultation. And we have actively contributed China's wisdom and strength in facilitating the political settlement of regional hotspot issues like the Korean Peninsula and Afghanistan. China advocates the Asian value featuring peace, cooperation, openness, inclusiveness. It has taken actions to facilitate people-to-people exchanges. We've rolled out Lanchang Mekong visas and ASEAN visas successively. We've launched a mutual visa exemption arrangement with countries in Southeast Asia and promoted the exchanges in such areas as culture, tourism, youth, as well as subnational and media and think tanks interactions. China will actively practice the vision of fostering an amicable, secure and prosperous neighborhood and the principle of amity, sincerity, mutual benefits, and inclusiveness, as well as the vision of building a shared community with a shared future, and write new chapters into the building community with a shared future with its neighboring countries. More questions, please.
南区，对。
Thank you very much. 早上好。Brasil de fato, 真是巴西。So, how does China view the role of the global South in building a community with a shared future for humanity? And also, what will China do to support the development of the global South countries, and also to support a bigger role for these countries in international organizations? Thank you very much. 谢谢。
请翻译一下。
真实巴西媒体集团，中方如何看待全球南方在构建人类命运共同体中的作用？中国将如何致力于促进全球南方国家的发展，以及在相关国际组织中发挥更大作用？
习近平主席指出，中国是
President Xi Jinping has pointed out that China will always be a member of the global South and a developing country. In recent years, the global South has been rising in momentum, and its economic aggregate accounts for over 40% of the world total. Their contribution to world economic growth has reached 80%. The global South have become a key force for world peace, common development, and the improvement of global governance. The global South is always on China's mind. China's roots are in the global South, and China seeks solidarity with fellow members of the global South. Over the past 10+ years, China has issued action plans and joint statements with several dozen countries in the global South on building a community with a shared future. The building of a community with a shared future now covers all the contiguously clustered areas for global South countries. China has also continued to deepen solidarity and collaboration with global South countries at the United Nations, G20, and other multilateral platforms. China takes an active part in BRICS, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and other platforms in order to uphold the common interests of the global South. With Chinese support, the Jakarta-Bandung high-speed railway has realized the dream of the Indonesian people to have a railway, and China's hybrid rice has enriched the grain supply of African people. China's satellite cooperation with Latin America has set an example of South-South cooperation in the high-tech field. We will stay committed to the right approach to friendship and interests and the principle of sincerity, real results, amity, and good faith, as we continue to deepen strategic mutual trust and practical cooperation with global South countries and support them in exploring development paths suited to their national conditions. We will be fellow companions and good partners in building a community with a shared future for humanity. Thank you.
时间关系，我们最后一个问题。
last question, please.
这边吧，第3排这位记者，对，举办提案。
谢谢主持人。环球时报环球网记者提问。
Thank you.
去年中国从
On
外
Global
国
Times,
平安撤回1万多名同胞。
last year, China has safely evacuated over 10,000 Chinese compatriots from foreign lands. This year, after the conflict between Iran and Israel broke out, China has immediately taken a series of consular protection measures, ensured the safety of Chinese nationals and institutions overseas, and swiftly organized evacuation missions. As more and more Chinese citizens go abroad, how will the MFA better safeguard their legitimate rights and interests overseas?
海外同胞的平安
The safety of Chinese compatriots on foreign lands is always the top priority of the motherland.
为人民服务是我们时刻
Serving the people is always
初心使命。
the founding aspiration and mission that we keep
外交
close
部
at
坚
heart.
决贯彻落实
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs will resolutely implement
重要指
the
示精神，
instructions of General Secretary Xi Jinping
决策部署
and the decisions of the Party Central Committee, coordinate efforts from different sides, and continue to build
驻外使领馆、企业和公民5位一体的
a 5-in-1 consular protection system that involves the central government, local authorities, overseas diplomatic missions, and companies as well as citizens.
中国公民
We will maintain equal emphasis on prevention and response and spare no effort to safeguard the lives and property of Chinese
战乱地
citizens.
区
Since this year, we have safely evacuated thousands of Chinese compatriots from war-torn areas,
数万起
properly handled tens of thousands of consular protection
接
cases.
听约30万通
We have responded
求
to
助咨询来电，
roughly 300,000
发布提
calls
醒预警
requesting for assistance and issued over 2,000 warnings.
很多同胞感慨，
Many Chinese compatriots have expressed that
祖国
in times of emergency,
从不缺席，
the motherland is always there.
纵然有千万里归途，
And though the journey home stretches thousands of miles,
接我们
the motherland will come to bring them home.
随着中外人员往来大幅增长，中国的海外
With growing people-to-people exchanges between China and the rest of the world, and expansion of China's overseas interest, the responsibility of serving the people on our shoulder is growing heavier than ever. We will focus on the need of the people
打造
and
海外
keep
平安，
pushing in this regard and to build a system for the protection of Chinese nationals overseas. We will fully leverage the strength of our
海外
system,
安保体制机制，
further improve
完善
system and
联动
mechanism for
协同
overseas protection,
务
and
实高
improve
效的安保工作
the
格局。
security architecture that is well coordinated, pragmatic, and
对海外
highly
安全
efficient.
风险的感知
We
力
will sharpen our awareness to overseas security risks,
橙
improve
黄蓝风险
the
评级体系，
4-tier risk
及
alert
时发
system,
布
and
安全
issue
提醒，
security
让
warnings
海外
timely,
安全信号灯更加醒目。
and make sure that the alert system could be more effective in this regard.
我们将加强涉外
We
突发
will
安全事件
Strengthen
应急处置能力建设，
our capacity building in
中国公民
handling
走到哪里
foreign-related emergent security
领事保
cases
护就
to
跟
make
到
sure
哪里。
that our consular protection can accompany our citizens whenever
有
they
所
go.
护，我必有所应。
And whenever our compatriots call,
我
we
们将持
answer
续打
every
造
single
专业
time.
化领事保护工作队伍，
We will continue to build a professional
用心
team for consular
用情
protection
用力守护好海外同
and
胞
guard the
今后的平安。
safety of our compatriots and institutions
为民
overseas
服务
with heart, with care, and with
使命
unwavering
如海。
resolve. Our
外交
mission
为
to
民
serve the people is as unshakable as
没有
a bad
完
rock.
成时，
We are
中国外交
always in action to
将
serve the
继续
people.
秉持以人民为中
China's
心的宗
diplomacy
旨
will always put the people front and center,
人民群众的贴心人，
and will always be
做
the one
海外同胞
that
安
can
全
count
和利益
on
的
for Chinese people and the guardian of Chinese
无论大
nationals and
家
interests overseas.
身在何
No
方，
matter where
祖国
Chinese citizens are,
永远
the
在你们身后。
motherland is always behind them.
谢谢。
Thank you.
谢谢赵旭部长。
Thank
谢
you,
谢各位记者
Deputy
朋友
Foreign
们的参
Minister Ma
与。
Zhaoxu.
今
Thank
天
you for
的
your
记者招待会
participation. That
就到这
concludes
里，大
today's
家再
press
见。
conference. Goodbye.